Joining me now is Arizona Congressman and a true patriot, Andy Biggs. Congressman, welcome. We're so glad to have you on the show tonight.
Jen, thanks. I'm glad to be with you.
Hey, I think back to around this time last year, and Nancy Pelosi referred to this probe as, quote, deadly serious. So here we are, a year later. We learned this panel hired an ex-GMA producer to help make their point. Is this really about the facts here, or is it about putting on a show for the American people? And does this move surprise you at all?
Yeah, it doesn't really surprise me because there's an old saying for trial lawyers that if you can't convince them with the facts, dazzle them with the BS and the production. And that's what's going to happen here. They don't have the facts to demonstrate their narrative that they've been working just over a year to craft this narrative. And so then they come in with a Hollywood-type producer who wants to make a documentary out of this. For what reason? Because they don't have facts. I mean, even one of their advisors said there's no smoking gun here tying the president with the organization of these rioters. The FBI has said that. But these guys, it's all they have. And so I wasn't really surprised too terribly much.
Well, I guarantee the legacy media really has an appetite for it. I mean, they're desperate for these hearings to be exciting and substantive. And not only do they need the ratings boost right now, but so far nobody is buying their narrative that Jan 6th was so-called darkest day in American history. In fact, really the opposite has happened. There was an NBC News poll that found that more than half of respondents, 55%, they say Trump was only somewhat responsible or not really responsible for the riots. So, if Joe Biden and his Democrat colleagues were actually polling favorably right now, just a few months ahead of the midterms, Congressman, do you think that this hearing would be getting the attention that we're about to see this week?
No, and you've pinned it. This is a distraction from a disastrous domestic and international policy performance by this president. This guy is going to go down as the worst president in American history, and they're going to get really toasted in the midterm election. So they have to distract. And so they're going to distract with this. The problem for them is, and the reason that you've got a Hollywood producer coming in now, is because the American public has moved on. And why have we had to move on? Because we're paying over $5 or $6 a gallon at the gas pump, and everything costs more. You got a border that's porous, and it's unsafe in most big cities that the Democrats run. So people say, look, you know what? January 6th is what it was. They've arrested some people. It's time to move on, and let's resolve this thing and go forward. But that's not what the Democrats are doing here.
Well, I have to ask you as well, Congressman, because you've been an outspoken advocate for at least the fair treatment of these Jan 6 prisoners. Do you think that we're going to hear anything during these hearings about them, about that mistreatment? And do you, by chance, have any updates for us?
I don't think you're going to hear anything about these people. I can tell you that there's a group of us in Congress, and I give Marjorie and Matt and Louie, they're kind of leading this group and leading the charge. We want to get to the bottom of this stuff. And you can see what happened in the Sussman case, how biased the D.C. area jail and the court system is against conservative voices. But we have got to do something for these January 6ers, because the reality is their right to a speedy trial has been abrogated. Their right to effective assistance of counsel has been destroyed. And that can't happen in the United States of America, and we've got to make that right.
Well, I got to ask you about this because, with any production, there's always a little bit of drama on the set. And Axios is reporting that the committee is split on what to do after the hearings. Some members are calling for abolishing the Electoral College because of the riot. What's your reaction to that?
That is so crazy. I mean, supposedly the impetus for this is to actually put legislation in to prevent future riots. Getting rid of the Electoral College would be getting rid of the last vestige of federalism in the United States government. We've turned it upside down. It's not surprising that they might be bickering over that, because you've got some of the most radical left-wing members of Congress that sit on this committee that led the impeachment against Donald Trump. Of course they want to get rid of the Electoral College. Who's surprised by that? Because if they got rid of it, if it hadn't been there, then Donald Trump never would have been elected. In fact, no Republican would ever be elected again. That's why they want to get rid of it.
Well, Congressman Andy Biggs, as I said at the top of the show, a true patriot. Great to see you, sir. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you, Jen.